Hello again, everyone. So today I'm going to deviate from my typical format, and I'm going to speak freely on something that came to mind as I was shooting my most recent video. The question I asked myself was, is it auspicious for the contemporary musician / producer to use hardware? Quite frankly, I didn't come up with an answer for that. However, what I did come up with were a couple of pros and cons behind using hardware versus software. I was reading some articles not long ago and watching a couple of YouTube videos on producers who use hardware. Let's see, there is one producer that I follow. Her name is Renee Misha. Very, very, very talented, very, very good, very skilled in audio engineering, specifically on the hardware route. I also come to find out, well, actually, there was a rumor that Korn is going to record their next album completely on tape reels. So the question is, why so adamant about hardware? Well, for anyone who knows me, I have a hard bias toward hardware synthesizers and hardware-based recording equipment. However, I also use software-based recording equipment. So I'm somewhat of a hybrid between the two. So which do I prefer? Which is better? Well, let's talk about it. Let's go over the cons first. The cons to using hardware. Number one, these things are very, 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 very difficult to use. Out of the box, if you do not have an inherent knowledge or an intrinsic knowledge of hardware synthesis, or synthesis in general, you're going to have a hard time with these, which is pretty much what inspired me to start my video series on these Roland boutiques. I realized that the instruction manuals aren't necessarily helpful when it comes down to how to operate these synthesizers. And it has nothing to do with a knowledge gap for the end user, but more or less it's how it's explained. Another thing about these instruction manuals is that it was almost as if that they were written predicated on the end user having a knowledge of synthesis. What is an LFO? What is an envelope generator? Why does the JD08 refer to its filter envelope as a TVF and its VCA as a TVA? Switching up the terminology on this, thus promoting a learning curve on this, right? So again, hardware can be difficult to use, not because the musician is not skilled, but just because of the way, number one, it's formatted, the way it's set up, the ceaseless jargon in the instruction manuals. And simple functions are very, very, very difficult to find. For example, how do I save a pattern on this? Some hardware synthesizers have a save button. With this, you have to press and hold a series of button combinations in order to save a patch. You would have to hold the button in order to access patterns. Very, 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 very confusing. Con number two, hardware is expensive. So modular synthesis is one of my go-tos when it comes down to sound design, unique sound creation, designing something that has never been heard before. But in order to achieve that, you have to have the hardware first. So not only do you have to pick up the hardware modules, you have to pick up power supplies, you have to pick up patch cables, you have to pick up a mixer, and then of course you have to have something that ultimately captures whatever it is you are creating. I tend to go the MPC route as for quick on-the-fly hardware sampling, but by the time you're done purchasing all of this, you would have spent a small fortune. So what's the point of it? Why not just use software such as Omnisphere or Serum in order to achieve the same goal? As a matter of fact, I was able to recreate Serum patches using modular synthesis, and then the thought occurred to me. Serum is emulating modular synthesis in one way or another, in a very compact, almost semi-modular format, pre-patched semi-modular format. Those are the cons that I could think of. But now let's talk about the pros, because this is where it gets fun. Hardware synthesizers are tactile. You can touch them, you can turn the knobs, you can press the buttons. If you want to alter a parameter, you don't have to use a mouse to dive through your menus. Now, granted, there is a fair amount of menu diving associated with JD08s, the JX08, the boutique synthesizers, sometimes semi-modular synthesizers. There is a fair amount of menu diving. However, to compensate for all of that, there are buttons, knobs, sliders that you can use to easily access the parameters that you need to access. Pro number 2, hardware synthesizers are reliable. I've had situations where software synthesizers crash, stop working. They are no longer compatible with the new iteration of whatever operating system I just so happen to be using. Licensing expires. Some software is on a subscription. Is on a you don't own it. It's subscription based. Let's just put it that way. At the end of the day, I decided to go the hardware route because all I have to do is just flip an on switch, and then I can just resume my project or start a new project. Again, going back to the question, which one do I think is better? Software, hardware? Why not both? Why not both? I've always said this. It's important to honor the tradition, but it's equally as important to embrace the innovation. So, for all of my producers, all of my musicians, if you're in a conundrum where you're debating on whether or not to go the hardware route or the software route, try both. A little bit of hardware here, a little bit of software here, all perpetually straddling the fence between analog and digital. Classic example of that would be me. In front of me, there are a few pieces of hardware. I have a Clark Technic FET compressor. I have a DBX dual channel equalizer. I also have a DBX sidechain compressor and what have you. But smack dab in the middle of all of that is an Apollo X8, which provides software emulations of Universal Audio's flagship hardware. But anyway, that's my 2 cents on the matter. I'm hoping that this was helpful if anyone cared to listen to that. But again, there was just something that was on my mind that I just had to kind of talk through. But as it relates to anything hardware, software, synthesizer related, for those of you who follow me know that I'm very, very adamant about answering questions pertaining to certain synthesizer types. But if you guys have any questions, comments, anything, leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment sections, and I'll talk with you guys soon. Thank you.